So good evening. Thank you for joining us for our fifth annual Human Rights Day program. My name is Allie Rosenberg.
And I am Stacy Science, and together we are the co-chairs of the Town of Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee. On behalf of our committee and the students of the Enough Club and the Enough Junior Club, we welcome you tonight.
Through tonight's program and listening to the stories of each of our incredible keynote speakers, we hope you will leave with an understanding of the challenges facing refugees and immigrants, and we hope you learn here tonight. We hope what you learn here tonight will inspire you to create a more welcoming community here in Newcastle and beyond.
Now, it is our pleasure to introduce the co-presidents of the Horace Greeley Enough Club, Eva Millerman and Jared Science, and members of the Enough Junior Club, Phoebe Rosenberg, Mariana Goshu, and Haley Gordon.
Human Rights Day is observed by the international community every year on December 10th. Human Rights Day is a chance for us to remember and to teach that hate is not acceptable. The mission of our club, Enough, which stands for Educate Now on Understanding Genocide and Hate, is to empower students to stand up to hate and to develop a community of acceptance through education and the understanding of people's differences.
As the next generation, we understand that we have a responsibility to educate ourselves and others on hate that exists across the world and right here at home. We hope that through the messages shared tonight, we are empowering you, our community, to stand up for human rights for every individual. As Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.
As the next generation of leaders, we can learn from the words of Eleanor Roosevelt. Where do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Unless these rights have meaning close to home, they have little meaning anywhere.
So tonight, by being here and listening to our keynote speakers' stories, you will learn about the importance of the need to protect human rights close to home.
And we hope it will move you to help protect human rights both here and around the world.
I'm Louis Lafazia, and I'm an executive of the Enough Club. We are grateful to have our local dignitaries here to support our program this evening. It is your work that is helping to ensure human rights are protected in New York State.
I'm Lily Hopschmidt, and I'm an executive of the Enough Club. It is my honor to introduce New York State Senator Peter Harcum.
Good evening, everyone. It is always great to be here on Human Rights Night. I want to thank all of the incredible students from the Enough Club and the Enough Junior Club. Certainly want to thank the Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee for the incredible work that you do. And these are important conversations, and we need to have them often, and we need to have them honestly. Just share two quick things because we want to get on with an incredible program. Number one, this election we took a major step forward in protecting the civil rights and the human rights and the equal rights of New Yorkers all across the state by passing the Equal Rights Amendment. And the Equal Rights Amendment, many people thought, was about reproductive health care freedom, and yes, there was a large component. But what it also did was it went into human rights law, the protections that had been passed over the years, and enshrined those protections in the Constitution. And that was important because in a political climate where people are marginalized and people are attacked and scapegoated, you don't know who successive legislators or governors will be, and it's important to enshrine those in the Constitution. So we want to thank all of you who voted for that, but it was not always easy. You all saw the signs. You all saw the dog whistles. I don't need to relitigate the argument, but trans students were used as a wedge issue. And if we're going to talk about equal protections under the law, and if we're going to talk about human rights, we have to stand up for everyone. We can't pick and choose whose rights we protect. We have to protect everyone's rights, because if we allow one group to be marginalized, then who's next and who's next? So I say that it's important that we ardently stand with everyone and protect everyone's dignity and human rights in the state of New York. So sermon over, thank you. I just want to make a personal note about one of the speakers tonight. Both of the speakers are incredible, but I was thrilled to learn that my dear friend and my former colleague, Senator Anna Kaplan, is going to be speaking later and taking questions. She'll get a formal introduction later, but Anna and I sat together on the Senate floor, and were it not for the misfortune of redistricting, Anna would still be a colleague, or she would be in Congress, and I'm convinced she will be in Congress one day. Anna is courageous, she's dynamic, she passed the Holocaust education legislation into law. She is really just an incredible human being with a big warm heart, and she used to steal my M&Ms all the time, and that's okay because I love her. So I want to thank you for bringing her here tonight. You're really going to enjoy what she and her co-speaker have to say. So with that, I just want to say thank you all for being here. Keep up the fight, and great to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Harcum, for your inspiring words.
I'm honored to introduce Westchester County Legislator Vidat Ghashi.
Good evening. We'll try that again. Good evening. There you go. It is an honor and a deeply humbling experience to be here with you all on the eve of Human Rights Day. A day that calls on us to reflect on the rights, the dignity, and humanity of every person. I want to thank Enough and the Newcastle Holocaust and Human Rights Committee for organizing this special event. Your commitment to raising awareness and fostering understanding about our ongoing struggles for human rights is a beacon of hope in a time when the world desperately needs it. Again, I am Vidat Ghashi. I'm a legislator from District 4 and serve as the Westchester County chairman of the board. But that's not where I started. I too was a refugee. I was born in Kosovo and was a former undocumented immigrant and have faced challenges of Islamophobia myself. I understand how critically important it is to have a place where your humanity is respected, no matter who you are or where you are from. Today, we gather under the shadow of the horrific attacks of October 7th, an act of terror that barbarically cut short lives and took hostages still suffering in captivity, but also attacked the very principles of peace, dignity, and justice that we hold so dear. On Human Rights Day and every day, I think it's incumbent upon us to call for and demand the immediate release of all hostages. It is a difficult time, and I think a time of darkness, but during these times of darkness, it's easy to feel powerless. But it is precisely in these times that that it's a moment where our shared values of justice, compassion, and solidarity must shine through. In these moments, it is even more important to hear from and celebrate the triumphs of people like our keynote speakers, New York State Senator Anna Kaplan, and our very own Joyce Shaw. Thank you for joining us tonight and for agreeing to share your stories. It's a reminder that we each have a role to play through our voices, through our actions, and through our shared commitment to those in need. Your triumph is our collective triumph. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to be a part of this special event. Thank you.
I'm Margot Zinavoy, member of Enough. Thank you, Westchester County Legislator Gashi, for being here tonight and for your words of hope.
Hi, I'm Rex Heller, member of the Enough Club, and it is my honor to introduce Assemblymember Chris Burdick.
Well, I think that now that everyone is warmed up, I'll say, good evening, everyone. I think that's much more robust. So it's really an honor to represent Newcastle in the New York State Assembly. And, I want to touch upon a few themes that we've already heard and which I think will continue through. And that is that we as New Yorkers, we as people here in Westchester can take pride in so many of the things that we do to provide that respect, that caring, that love for people who are different than we are, and to treat them as human beings and as kindred souls. And we are going to especially see how important that is in the coming months, when the president-elect has already declared that on his first day in office, he wants to organize the greatest mass deportation in United States history. And understandably, immigrants who are here legally for political asylum are incredibly frightened, as well they should be. Part of our job is to help to protect them. And you're going to hear more and more about rallies and efforts to protect those being attacked, just as the Jewish community was attacked on October 7th. And has already been stated and needs to be stated repeatedly, it is incredibly important that we stand together. But as Senator Harkin had said, we truly can be proud of the progress that we have made here in New York State. And the constitutional amendment that he was describing actually provides that New York State now has the strongest state constitutional protections for human rights in the country. And we can be incredibly proud of that. And I'm going to be an optimist that Washington is not going to take action that will undo what we do here. Because I think many people do recognize that the supremacy clause in the state constitution, in the U.S. Constitution, could undo so much progress that we have made here. But I think that we're going to be able to fight back on that, should it be actually brought forward. I think we'll be able to push back on that. But actually not without the help of so many people here and throughout the nation to push back on efforts to dampen those rights that we have created in states like ours. So I see this actually as a time to celebrate what we've done and to ensure that we do everything we can to protect those rights and not let them get snatched away. And I really applaud everything that the Holocaust and Human Rights Committee is doing, everything that Enough is doing, everything that you here in the community are doing. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing to protect human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Burdick, for being here with us tonight and for all that you do for our community.
I'm Caitlin Fishman. This is Liv Goldberg, Alexa Marks, and Sydney Goodman, and we are members of the Enough Club.
It is our honor to introduce former New York State Senator Anna Kaplan.
Anna Kaplan was born in Iran when the Islamic Revolution swept the country of Iran in 1979. Her parents made the heart-wrenching decision to send her by herself to the United States at just 13 years old.
Please join us in welcoming Anna Kaplan.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to first start by thanking the Holocaust and Human Rights Committee and the board, but more importantly, the Enough Club and the Junior Enough Club. It warms my heart to see so many young people here tonight, because after all, it's about you. My name is Anna Monahimi Kaplan, and I stand before you as a very proud Iranian-American Jewish refugee. I was born in Tabriz, and I grew up in Tehran. And in 1979, we saw our whole country changing. I went to a Jewish day school that was across the street from the famous University of Iran. And we would hear the shouting and the rallies in the university of the young people coming out and trying to fight against Shah and the kingdom. And every day things got worse and worse. As Jews, we lived a comfortable life under the regime. Shah liked Jews, and he let us live comfortably and peacefully with them, with the rest of Muslim community. But I also have to tell you, even though it was great for Jews, it was also not great in so many ways. I remember as a 5-year-old child going shopping with my mother at a little supermarket. It was a rainy day, and the shop owner knew my mother was Jewish. And I remember it so well. He turned around and he said, "Don't touch anything. Tell me what you want. I will take and weigh it and give it to you." Because they felt Jews were not clean enough. So even though we lived comfortably, we always tried to live very much under the radar and not cause trouble and not really attract attention. So fast forward to 1979, when all the disruptions started in Iran. I remember we couldn't leave homes after 8 o'clock. Schools got canceled all the time. And there was a sense of fear, especially for the Jews. My parents were not in a position to get up and leave everything that they have had worked all their life. But they heard from a local synagogue. Lubavitcher Rebbe had sent representatives and had said, "Please leave Iran. It is not safe for you. We would hate to see another Holocaust. And if you can't, let us take your children." I come from a very conservative home. I have 4 older brothers. I'm the youngest and the only girl. And my parents were always very, very protective of me. Heck, they wouldn't even let me sleep at my aunt's house. And that's the God honest truth. I can't imagine what it took for them to make this really hard decision to send their 13-year-old daughter to United States, a country that my mother had not even visited. My father had been here, but not my mother. Anyway, they made the decision for our safety, I came to US with 39 other kids. We stopped in Rome to get a visa. And when we got issued visa by the embassy in Rome, we flew to New York City. I got here on a very cold Thursday night sometime in April, and I remember taking a bus, a yellow bus, from Kennedy Airport to Crown Heights, New York. And let me say, there were no camps, there were no sites for us, there were no buildings that could place us. The Rebbe had asked all of his members to empty a room or two and shelter kids like myself. So a family took me and 3 other girls and gave us one of their rooms. And for that, I will always be grateful. From there, I figured that that wasn't really the place I wanted to be. I had 2 older brothers who were in college in Chicago, and they went to UJA and asked for help. They found a family that would help us, and for a small stipend, would shelter me and let me stay in their home and attend high school. I went to Highland Park High School and started learning English. And for some of you young people, this might not mean anything, but I learned English by watching Happy Days, which was a comedy sitcom, and General Hospital, and of course, school. My parents left 6 months after I had left, and they tried to come to US, but it hit right the time that they took over the embassy in Iran and they took hostages, all the employees in the embassy. And the United States government stopped issuing visas to any Iranian. They went to 3 different countries in Europe. They could not obtain, and they were told finally that there is a freeze and they're not issuing visas to any Iranians. So they couldn't go back to Iran. They were already on a list. And they went and took shelter in Israel and stayed there for 1.5 years until hostages were released. And once that was done, United States government started issuing visas, and they were able to obtain a visa and come to US. We all lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago. I finished high school, and my family decided to move to New York because we had more Persians and some family members in New York, and my parents felt very, very lonely coming from very big families themselves. So we moved to Queens. I started college. I went to Stern College for Women, which is part of Yeshiva University. And I don't know what made me do this, but I always felt that I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to wear a suit. I wanted to have a corner office and a secretary. And let me tell you, Persian girls at that time did not go to law schools. God bless my father, he's passed, but he was always very forward thinker. And I was blessed for him not to think of me as the girl. Education was very important for them, for both of my parents, who did not have college degrees, but they wanted that for their children. I remember there was somebody in the community who wanted my hand in a marriage and asked my father for my hand. And I told my father, I would do whatever you ask me to, but I really would like to go to college. And I was only 17, so he said, okay, you can go to college. And as I said before, I wanted to become a lawyer, but girls don't become lawyers. They get married and they have kids. And they become wives and mothers. So I don't know how, but I got some money and I signed up for LSATs, Kaplan LSATs, and took the course, took the exam, applied to only one school, Cardozo Law School, went for an interview, got in, got an acceptance letter, and then went to my brother to ask him to help me to talk to my parents so that they would let me go to law school. I never thought I would be a rebel or do things that were not normal in our community and in my family. But I have to tell you, I do feel very blessed. I knew I was blessed when I was able to come to this country because I always viewed this country as a country where you could come and work hard and do anything you set your mind to. So fast forward, I finished law school. I did not practice. I got married to a nice Ashkenaz boy. And in the words of Senator Schumer, who met me once, he said, I had a mixed marriage because I was Sephardic and he was Ashkenaz. I have been blessed in so many ways. One of the big blessings was my husband. And we settled in Great Neck. I have two wonderful daughters who went through Great Neck Public School and went to college. They both are adults now and they're working. Good jobs. Don't ask me for any funding. So I guess I did one thing right. And in the time that I was at home with my kids, my husband used to travel a lot for work. He was a class action attorney. So when I was needed to be home, and I was the one who sat home, I was asked to run for the library board in Great Neck. And I did it kicking and screaming because I hated, still do, public speaking, taking pictures. I liked the work, but just not all the stuff that comes with it. My mother-in-law told me that this country is great because of people who come from all over, and they make their dreams come true, and they give back. And that this would be my way of giving back to our library, our community. Once that happened, I served for 4 years. I was asked to sit on the zoning board of town of North Hempstead, which is the 5th largest town in the United States, with 240,000 residents. I represented one district, which was 40,000 people. I was asked to run for the council seat. And I decided to run because the seat that I represented had a lot of Persian Jewish community in it, a community that was never taught to register and to vote so that their voices could be heard. I ran so that I could bring that to them and show them that we live in America now and that we all should register and that we should vote and make sure the things that are important to us are important to our elected officials. I served for 4 years, and it was a very difficult thing for me because part of the district was very anti-Jewish, very anti-immigrant, and not so great with a woman. But I was very happy to say the work that I did in my re-election for the council seat, I got even the part of the district that was not very much favorable to me to come out and vote for me. After that, in 2018, I decided I wanted to run for New York State Senate because I had a student come up to me, high school student, saying that they went to see their New York State senator. It was right after Parkland shooting. And they wanted to tell her and express to her that they were fearful of going to school and that she wouldn't even meet with them. No child should ever be scared of going to school. Your biggest scare should be the math exam or the history exam. It broke my heart to hear a 16-year-old talking about fearing their life and not possibly making it out of school. I ran in 2018. I ran against someone who was an incumbent, who was very well funded, and was brought back a lot of money to the district. So they tried to help her in every shape, form. And they told her that she could win it. I remember early days when I had to sit and call and ask for support and financial support. People, the first thing would ask me, who are you running? And as soon as they would hear, they would hang up on me. I won that race with 11 points. Thank you. In 2022, redistricting happened. 45% of my district changed. A district that the 45% that was my base, the communities that were left behind and were not cared for, that I delivered for, and they were not able to go out and vote for me. I lost my race regrettably, but that's politics. And in 2023, I'm part of the district that was represented by guess who? George Santos. And I decided that my voice would be a good voice in Congress. A refugee from Middle East, a Jewish refugee from Middle East. And I decided to go ahead and run. I raised over $1 million in a span of 12, 13 months. But unfortunately, there was no primary because they ejected him, and there was a special election. For special elections, the party leaders pick who they want as their candidate. It was between me and Tom Suozzi. The party decided to go with the sure bet, Tom Suozzi, and they picked him to run. And I dropped out of the race. And I say all of this, and I have to say it's been a wonderful journey for me. Hard, very hard at times, but a journey that really has made me grow as a human being, as a woman. And I am so blessed to be standing here and telling you about all of my journey. God bless you. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I really want, again, thank all of the young people here tonight. And I want, if you take one thing from me tonight here, it would be that dream big, go out and work hard, because every one of those dreams can turn into a reality. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. I mean, you've inspired us all. We thank you.
And the students are now going to dream and go out and make their dreams happen. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and inspiring us all tonight.
I'm Jared Shiro, and this is Alex Schulman, and we are members of the Enough Club. It is our honor to introduce Newcastle resident Joyce Shaw. In addition to being one of tonight's keynote speakers, Joyce is also the grandmother of students at Bell and Roybrook and the great aunt of students at West Orchard, Bell, and Greeley.
Joyce will share her experiences of growing up in Iraq and eventually immigrating to the United States. Please join us in welcoming Joyce Shaw.
Anna, you're a very hard act to follow, but I will try my best. Okay. Good afternoon, evening, night, whatever. Thank you for inviting me. It's a little, okay, this is better before it pokes my eye. Thank you. Thank you for all the people who joined in organizing this lovely meeting. It's an eye-opening for not for everybody who's here. Anna itemized what happened with her, and I wanted to give you a background of why these things happened. I left Iraq in 1961 before, but I left alone to come to school. That was the only way that I could come on a student visa because Jews were not allowed to leave. I was one of many, many, many people who left the Middle East and North Africa, of Jewish people who left. There were about 850,000 people who had to leave in the 20th century because of after the breakup of the Ottoman Empire. I don't like to speak also in front of people, but I will do it. Thank you for your patience. Okay. It's a little known fact that there were so many people that left, became refugees from the Middle East. Now there are only about 10,000 people, and they don't live under very wonderful conditions. When I came here, I faced culture shock. Everything was different. I had to get accustomed to everything. I came to New York. The buildings were big. People were all over the place. It was very crowded. I had to figure out public transportation, get accustomed to a new reality, even though I was pretty fluent in English. The catch was I spoke with a British accent, not an American accent. It took me a while to get accustomed to that also. I was lucky to have a support system. I stayed with my uncle and my grandmother and my great-grandmother who were living in Manhattan. I want to give you a background of why things happened that way. Jews were in Iraq for over 2,700 years with the Babylonian captivity. Some of you might know about that. If you don't, you should take a look. The fortune of Jews over the centuries fluctuated between being persecuted or tolerated, depending on who was on power. They had to pay extra taxes. They were always treated as second and maybe third-class citizens, and they were excluded from many opportunities and jobs. Since Iraqi Jews were in the country for so long, even before Islam, they had a base, they had communities. They were tribal, but they had communities, and they interacted with each other. And one thing that they found that is very important is education. Most Jews, not all of them, were pretty educated. They were traders. They went to other countries and imported things that they found good in those countries. They went to Europe. They went to India. There is still some Jewish communities, Jewish synagogues in India, and there are Jews in India, and some of them came from Iraq. What was important is education. In the 19th century, some of the very rich traders came back and established Jewish schools. And these Jewish schools were really good. In the Jewish school that I went to, we learned Hebrew, French, and Arabic in first grade, picked up English in the fifth grade. And from seventh grades on, we took every syllabus, every year with the syllabus with a different language. So we were fluent in at least 2 or 3 languages when we came out, which helped us tremendously when we had to emigrate. Things got really bad after the breakup of the Ottoman Empire. A third of Baghdad at the time was Jewish. Because of the education, there were a lot of people who were doctors or accountants, lawyers. Matter of fact, when I went to Israel in the 70s, when somebody said they were an accountant, everybody assumed that they were Jewish, that they were Iraqi Jews. Things got much worse in the 30s when the king there became a fan of Hitler. He was into Nazi plus Pan-Arabism. Pan-Arabism is all the countries that were the Ottoman Empire got together and said, we can sink the Israeli, we can sink the Israeli state before it becomes a state. In 1941, there was a pogrom in Baghdad, also in Basra and Mosul, that's the north and the south of Iraq. About 700 Jews were killed, thousands were wounded and hospitalized. Businesses were broken into, houses were broken into. My family was lucky that their neighbors sheltered them from the mayhem, so they did not get hurt. But again, 700 Jews is a lot. The immigration started after the State of Israel was established. In 1950 and 1951, the government of Iraq told Jews that they should leave. They have a year to leave, and they can take some possessions with them. After they registered, a lot of people registered to emigrate. The government said, no, you're not taking anything with you. You can just leave on your own. Anyway, about 90% of the Jews of Iraq left at that time. My husband was also an Iraqi Jew. His family left at that time. His father had a lot of lands. He had 3 houses. He was general manager of a big French company. He tried to sell his car. He got jailed. When they left, they had just about 4 or 5 suitcases for 6 people, $300, and what his wife sewed into their clothes, like monies, passports, some jewelry, something like that. They spent about 10 months in the camps in Israel. They were refugee camps, probably not as bad as the ones that we hear about now, but they were refugee camps. They had very little food. They had maybe 2 or 3 bread and margarine sandwiches a day, very little meat or vegetables. My father-in-law could not find a job there because there wasn't that many jobs in Israel at the time. Israel had 400,000 people and received 650,000 refugees. So they almost sunk, but Jews are hardy. Anyway, when I grew up in Iraq, it was a small in Baghdad, it was a small self-contained community. There was only one synagogue and one school from first grade through high school. We only basically fraternized with our own. I remember only 1 or 2 times that we had Muslims come over or we went to their house. My family decided to emigrate to Israel, but then when they heard about what the conditions were, they decided to wait to get visas for America, and they applied for them in 1945. They didn't get them until 58, 60. And we couldn't all get out at the same time. My mother was pretty instrumental in getting us out because she was really focused on getting out of Iraq, and she had brothers in the States, and so did my father have family in the States. He had 2 sisters in the States. It took a lot of bribes for my mother to go to the American embassies a few times a month, bring treats and cookies and baklava and stuff like that, and befriending all the people there. And also going to the Iraqi immigration services and bribing anybody who would take a penny. Well, it was more than a penny, actually. Anyway, we had a very comfortable life. It mirrors what Anna was saying about hers. When we moved to New York, we wound up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens also. And that was pretty hard because we had a pretty large house and things in Baghdad. We took a very small portion out, but we had liberty. We could do anything we want. Girls could go to college. They could work, even though until 1970s they couldn't get a credit card. We're working on that. Anyway, our education in Iraq really helped us succeed. My father went back to Iraq in 1963 to liquidate his business, and he almost got liquidated himself. There was a Ba'athist, anti-Semitic revolution, and Jews became the target for real. They couldn't take money out of the bank, they couldn't work, they were only allocated very little money to live on. They had to pay bribes. A lot wound up in jail. And unbeknownst to us, my father was in jail for 2 years. He was lucky that he knew somebody at the jail and he wasn't bothered as much as some other people. He got out of Iraq in 1971 after, again, some bribing. And he arrived 10 days before my wedding, and the celebration was more for him than for the wedding. Everybody was so happy to see him. We almost gave up on that. And he had missed already 3 of his children's weddings, so that was a real plus. My husband's family moved from Iraq to Iran to Israel to Madagascar to the Ivory Coast, and France. And then he came and found me in New York. We achieved the American dream. We had good jobs. We had good social life. We traveled a lot. And a wonderful daughter who excelled in her studies and career and gave us 2 lovely grandchildren. Thank you. I'll work on my speech patterns.
Before you exit the stage, just we want to thank you. Oh, yeah, actually, we're going to hold these.
Thank you.
Joyce, thank you for your inspiring story. We really, a round of applause one more time. And now we invite Anna and some of the Enough and Enough Junior students to come up to conduct the Q&A.
Hi, I am Zach Raulitzer. I'm a 10th grader at Greeley and an executive in the Enough Club. Anna, you spoke about your experiences as a refugee. What were some of your biggest fears when you first arrived in the United States?
So I often get asked by people, when you came here, you were 13 years old and you came without your parents. Weren't you scared? And I have to say that I probably should have been, knowing what I know now. But I was just so much more excited about coming to America because I knew, and from what I had seen in the movies and what I had read in the books, this was the country of opportunity, the land that you could come and work hard and hopefully get to where you want to go. What I was scared, I think, was obviously we all think about failing. We are all scared when we pick something and we think about it and we want to do it, but we get scared. I've always tried very hard to push out of my comfort zone and try to get out of my own way. And I think that has been really what has led me to be where I am, who I am, and all of my experiences. And I'm grateful for that. If I let my fear get in the way, I wouldn't have done any of this, because if you told that 13-year-old immigrant girl she would come to this country as a political refugee and one day be elected to one of the highest offices in the land, in the state of New York, I probably would have laughed at you. But here we are. So really, it's okay to be scared. I think it keeps you humble. But don't let your fear stand in your way.
Hi, my name is Leo Levin, and I'm a 10th grader at Greeley and an executive in the Enough Club. Joyce, what challenges did you and your family face upon arriving in the United States, and how did you and your family cope with these challenges?
There were a lot of challenges, but we had really a very good support system here, and uncles and aunts and cousins, and they helped us through a lot of the trials that we faced. One story about one trial that is a little funny is I never did any laundry before. Somebody did it and brought it to me. And when I came, I had to do laundry. So I asked my uncle, who were living in this very big apartment, how do I do that? And he said, well, I'll take you to the room downstairs, to the basement, and they have, washing machines and dryers, and you can do that. And I said, washing machines and dryers? So he gave me change, and he explained how to do this. And all I knew is that you have to use very hot water to clean things. So I put my cashmere sweater in the machine and put my 10 cents in there and watched it go up and down and up and down, and it came out and it was about a size, I don't know, 0. So I thought, okay, maybe when I put it in the dryer, it will fluff up. When it came out of the dryer, it looked like Barbie's clothes. That was my first lesson. And then I just got used to things. I kept asking questions, and I changed my accent after a few months. I had gone to art school. That was very hard because art school in 1961 was very hippie, and I wasn't. I went to school, and when I went like I was wearing a uniform, and everybody was like in jeans and hair up to here, and I felt like a fish out of water. What I got out of it is I was a child when I came here, but I became an adult very quickly.
I'm Haley Stern. I'm a junior at Greeley and an exec in the Enough Club. Anna, what was your biggest accomplishment as a New York State Senator?
I have to tell you, I've had so many really great moments in New York State Senator that I can't really narrow it to only one thing. But one thing that was very meaningful for me was Holocaust education bill was in New York State Senate for over a decade. It would pass one house or another, but it wouldn't pass by both houses at the same time. So it never became law. I really worked hard for 2 years, and I actually made some enemies because I kept pushing for it. And we got it passed in New York State Senate. We got it passed in New York State Assembly, and we sent it to the governor, and she signed it August of 2022. Aside from that, I also had a ghost gun bill. For some of you who might not know, those are 80% finished guns that arrive at your home, and you can assemble them in less than an hour and have a fully operating AR-15. We banned those in New York. That was my bill. My first year, the reproductive rights for women was the bill. The first month we passed reproductive rights, I was part of that incoming class that was able to actually pass those bills, sensible gun laws. And one other really great moment was, for me, COVID hit hard every community, but especially small businesses. I chaired small business commerce and economic development in New York State Senate for 4 years. And I was the only advocate for them. And I went and I fought, and in our budget in 2021, we put in $800 million as a source for small businesses to tap into and get funding, about $5,000, not a lot, but help some of these small businesses to start again and pick themselves up and really go ahead, because a lot of them were closing and shutting down after COVID. So there's a lot of things, and I really am grateful to have been part of that, to have been able to make those differences. Those are some of the key things that I always remember and take joy that I was able to be part of it and allow it to come to fruition.
Hi, I'm Phoebe Rosenberg. I'm an 8th grader at Seven Bridges, and I am a member of the Enough Junior Club. Joyce, you shared that you immigrated to the United States after high school. What human rights were you lacking in Iraq that became so important to you when you moved to the United States?
All. Really. But the one thing that I really appreciated, I mean, is voting. Oh, sorry. It's on. Yeah, it's on. I took great joy in voting as soon as I became a citizen, and I voted in every election, and I still do. And if I could, I would do it twice. No, but really, women did not have any rights in Iraq. And I'm sure now it's much worse because it was more advanced when I left than it is now. They couldn't have their own accounts. They couldn't have, they couldn't vote. It's not a human right, but literacy was very lacking. When I was in school, and that was like in the 50s, the Iraqi literacy rate was about 7%. So if you could read and write, basically you can have a job. Again, with women, you couldn't do anything beside being a secretary, basically, or house help. I did not have to do that. I was very happy to keep going to school. I went to art school, design school, and then decided to go to college and then graduate school. So that would not have been open to me. Also working, even though in the beginning, when women started working in the 60s and the 70s, it was hard here also because you couldn't get a mortgage based on your own money. You had to have a husband who had a job also. So these are things that we still are working with, and I encourage people to be very involved in civics and government. Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing your personal stories with us tonight. You are both so inspiring, and we thank you for educating our community about your experiences.
Tonight, as you leave the chat pack, we will be handing out cards describing 5 different human rights activists. We hope as you read their stories, you will continue to be inspired to help create a better world.
I am Lily Kate Gurdian, member of the Enough Junior Club. It is now our honor to introduce Newcastle Town Supervisor Victoria Tipp, who will close tonight's program.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, that was really moving. I want to thank members of the Holocaust and Human Rights Committee and their co-chairpersons, Ali Rosenberg and Stacy Science, and the Enough Club, Ava Middleman and Jared Science, and the members of the Enough Club Junior. I have to say, whenever I end up saying something personal, it's completely unplanned. But I can't help but refer to my own background. I'm also an immigrant, and if I think about it, probably a refugee. I came here when I was a year old, and I'm telling you the story to illustrate how connected we all are and how common this story is, and it touches all of us. I came here from Haiti when I was a year old, with my parents, though. We escaped brutal dictatorship. My father had a gardener who told us that we were next in family to be killed. So I left with my mother. My father was able to get us papers. Left with my mother first. He stayed back with my mother's mother because they couldn't get their papers right away. My mother tells the story of trying to get on the airplane with me, and we were faced with military police with machine guns. And the reason they didn't shoot us down is because an American stewardess, this is what they were called at the time, came off the plane, and she picked me up. They were killing anyone who was in the educated classes, who had any French ancestry, which we did, and we also had Jewish ancestry, although I was raised Catholic. That's a whole other story. So we came to Manhattan, where my father's mother had come before us. She had an apartment on West End Avenue, thank goodness, where my entire family went through. It was a one-bedroom, but those apartments were nice and big. We ended up moving to Queens, as in Anna and Joyce's story. So there's something about Queens anyway. We lived in all kinds of boroughs, and my mother ended up with a job at the United Nations, and my father worked for Barclays Bank. We were fortunate in that way because my parents were educated, so we were able to live a middle-class life after having left everything of value that we owned behind. It's a common story, isn't it? You tell so many similar tales. The one about being a lawyer, well, for me, that was because my mother wanted me to be a doctor. So that was the best, next best thing I could offer her. But we have many similarities, and I won't, go through all the details of my story because I'm supposed to be giving a closing statement. But I couldn't help by closing by letting you know that this is a story that touches all of us. And we're here as Americans, and if we're here not as indigenous people, it's because we are either have the background of an immigrant, a refugee, or an enslaved person. And this is who we are as a community, as a country, and we really have to stick together because this is our story collectively. So thank you to everyone, especially Anna and Joyce, who gave us your personal story. It's sometimes hard to talk about yourself, but we really appreciate your being here with us today and, shining a bright light on how we can move forward. Thank you so much to everyone for participating.